everyone. I just want to take a minute to talk about having a baby by C-section. I see a lot of hate comments and messages by people who say that women who've had a C-section or who can only have C-sections are not real moms or are taking the easy way out. I don't get offended by that. I've had 2 C-sections. I don't get offended by it. I just kind of think it's funny. They're just being ignorant, want attention. Anyway, as I said, I've had 2. My first one was, like a lot of people, emergency C-section. I was so gung-ho going into my labor, like, I'm going to do this totally unmedicated. And I didn't even take any classes. I was very confident. Plus, I wanted a lot of kids, so I was like, I did really well. For 30 hours, I successfully went through labor without medication, and then I had to give in to an epidural because I hadn't slept in over 30 hours, and in order to sleep, I needed to not be in so much pain, so I had to give in to an epidural. Well, about 10 or 12 hours later, my doctor came in, and because my water had broke, that was the reason we went into the hospital, is because my water broke. So it had broke over almost 40 hours earlier. He said that I had developed an infection and it was getting to the baby, and he said, "You did amazing, but I would advise you get a C-section." And I was so defeated because I had tried so hard for so long to have this baby naturally. And I said, what does this mean for the rest of my life having kids? Because I've failed this first time. And so I had to agree to it because I didn't really have a choice. And so we went in, and when he got her out, she was only 7 pounds, 11 ounces. She wasn't big. He said she was in the perfect position to come out. She wasn't twisted. She wasn't breached. Her head wasn't big. He said what happened was your pelvic opening in your pelvis is shaped like a heart. So your spine is pushed in, which some people have that and they are able to deliver naturally. It just takes a long time. But the problem is I'm only like 5'2" and like 112 pounds, and so I'm very tiny, and so that pelvic opening was only 3 inches wide. What the problem is, people start thinking that you're being lazy when you have a second planned C-section. A lot of people think you're just being lazy. And really, the first thing that you got to know is for a lot of people, making the decision to have a planned C-section with your second pregnancy is very heart-wrenching. Because what does that mean for the rest of your life, having kids, is that you're slimming down your chances of having more every time because you're thinning the wall of your uterus. And so I had to make that decision, and we decided to go ahead and plan one. But I'm still not giving up on our dream, me and my husband's dream of having a lot of kids. And so we went in for my second planned C-section, and I was excited because my second pregnancy was a lot harder than my first one. My first one, most of the time, even at the end, I kept saying, I don't feel pregnant. Like, at the end, I kept saying, I don't feel pregnant, most of the time. And with my second one, I was like, man, am I just being a wimp? I felt terrible all the time. My legs would shake as I would go to stand up. I couldn't sleep. I had to change out my mattress because my back hurt so bad. It was not like that with my first one. So, anyway, when we went in, like I said, I was excited, and then I went into the prep room, and I started getting nervous. I wouldn't have admitted at the time that I was nervous. Nurses kept saying, "Oh, don't be nervous," and I was like, "I'm not nervous." Yeah, I was nervous, but I was in denial. And I know for a lot of people, this probably isn't a big deal, but the IVs were awful for me. I actually had to have 2 because with my first baby I had placenta accreta, which is where the placenta grows into the uterine wall. And even if I had delivered my first baby naturally, she would have, the placenta would have dragged my uterus right out, and I would have been rushed into surgery, and there would have been a high risk of me bleeding to death. So with my second one, they knew that I had a minor accreta, so they had, for procedure sake, they had to put 2 IVs in. It was awful for me because it felt like they were driving steak knives into my hands. So after they got all that done, and I waited for 30 to 45 minutes to go into surgery, which was nerve-wracking. Them asking a million questions, and the anticipation of going in was making me get very shaky. Then they made me get up and walk to the OR, which that walk is very nerve-wracking. Then you walk into the OR by yourself. My husband couldn't come with me because it's just a procedure, and that was very hard for me because I like him to be with me for everything, everywhere, all the time, if he can be. That he couldn't be in there with me while I got the spinal, which I was also nervous about. So by the time I got in there, I was cold and nervous. So I wasn't just shivering or shaking, I was almost like convulsing. I was shaking so bad. And they expect you to sit still for the spinal. It's very important. And so when they got the spinal in, it hurt. It wasn't awful, but I had an awful, painful, numbing sensation rush down my left leg, which scared me because I do not want to get a back injury from spinal or epidural. I know people can get those, only because I want to have more kids. So then my husband came in, and I felt better. As the numbing set in, I actually felt really good. I know some people, when they go through the surgery, it's very hard on them. My surgery wasn't bad. I actually felt like I was on the cloud. I kept telling my husband over and over, I feel amazing right now, because I had the discomfort of pregnancy taken away. But you go for me, I went from being in surgery and feeling great and happy to see my baby to now they're wheeling me out of surgery and the numbing started going away. And then you have to deal with you're happy you have your baby, but you're feeling worse and worse and worse. And you will continue to feel worse and worse as the days go on for a little while. So the first sensation you feel is you feel like someone ignited your stomach on fire. Every time you move, every time you get up, and they expect you to walk every few hours, and every time you get up, you feel like someone reignited that flame on your stomach. And I actually figured out why I was so uncomfortable during my pregnancy, because when my son was born, he was 9 pounds, 6 ounces. So yeah, that was a very large baby for me. Which actually made me feel better about not having him naturally, because there's no way he would have fit through a 3-inch wide opening. His head was so big, the little hospital caps wouldn't even fit on his head. So then, I don't know if anyone else who's had a C-section has experienced this, but when the anesthesia wears off, it feels like someone's taking a hair over your nose all day long. And you wouldn't think that would be bad, but after all day and you like trying to scratch it, it doesn't help. So then you have the compression boots on for days, which isn't bad at first, but then whenever the nurses left, I just took them off and just scratched my legs for forever, for like 30 minutes straight, because it was so awful. And then there's the catheter, which is awful when they have to take that out. And then there's all kinds of gory details I wouldn't go into that anyone who's had a baby, I'm sure, knows about. And then one of the hardest things, harder than that, is that not only that you have to stay in the hospital for several days, unlike when you have one naturally, you can go home the next day, you come home and you still feel awful. You feel awful for a couple weeks. Thankfully, I had a husband to stay home with me for 2 weeks to help me with my toddler. And that was very difficult because she's thinking, she didn't understand. She's thinking, why isn't mom bathing me? Why isn't mom putting me to bed? Why isn't mom putting me in my high chair like normal? And so that was emotional for me, and it was emotional for her, and I thought things are never going to get back to normal with me and my daughter, but they did. They did get back to normal eventually. And eventually, though, you don't feel yourself for about 8 weeks. I could do almost everything like normal after a couple weeks, but I know for everyone it's different. But I'm definitely not going to say that either way is easier or harder. I've never pushed a baby out. I've gone through labor. But I have talked to women who've done both. Some women say one way's harder. Some women say the other way's easier or harder. I'd say on average, they're just different. They're just two different ways of delivering babies into this world. And the important thing is that you just need to know that you have brought an eternal soul into this world. And the women out there who feel guilty about delivering through C-section, I know what that's like, to feel guilty and to feel like a failure, but you're not. That's the way you were made. And honestly, I'm thankful for my C-section, because if I wasn't able to have it, then I would have died, my daughter would have died, my son wouldn't exist, and I'm just thankful that I get to be their mom. Some women cannot have babies at all, and they would give anything to have a C-section. And you're not any more or less their mom. You're not any more or less of a woman either. You have a scar to remind you that you gave your body for one person or multiple people, for your little angels. And you just need to be happy for yourself and for everyone who can have a baby. Bye.